I was thinking long and hard about what to talk about this morning and how to present this morning, what to say. And I thought I'd just take you through some of the added value we do when we're looking at website work. It's very easy to see the end products you've seen on the screen over there of a pretty looking website, but there's far more to delivering a successful website than just the way it looks. And I just thought I'd take you through some of the tools that we use which will sort of show some of the value that we add to our clients when looking at their website projects. So the first sheet you've got in your little pack is a search positioning questionnaire. Now this is a toolkit that we use right at the very start of the project to analyse what the customer is wanting to appear on a search engine, how they're wanting to promote themselves. So we'll look at what websites they've got, fairly obviously, who their key competitors are, what key phrases that they think people will search on. Now that's quite interesting. What key phrases people search on isn't necessarily the phrases that you think that people search on. So understanding that, and there are various tools that we use for analysing that, is really important. But one of the things you're going to talk about over your breakfast is ask the people on your table what key phrases would they use to search for your business, not what you think that they should use to search for your business. Jargon is a terrible thing in this particular area. If you run a business, you know the buzzwords that tick the box for your business, but your customers often won't. And geographical areas you're targeting, that's really important because it's very difficult to find, to be number one for web design, for example. There's an awful lot of web design companies out there. However, if I want to be number one for web design in Solihull, I stand a slightly better chance. So thinking about the geographical areas you're targeting is important when you're then looking at the contents and so on your website. So one of the offers for you all today is if you all fill in that questionnaire before you leave and leave me a copy with your contact details, you'll get to have one of these, which is some software that we use then to take that data, and before we launch a website, it gives us a chance to see how their current website is performing on a search engine, and obviously then once we launch a new website, to monitor the performance of that website after the website's gone live. And you can monitor it against key competitors, and the software that we use, it's reasonably expensive, and the reason we bought it is it simulates a manual search process. A lot of the tools out there do it automatically, which actually skews the results, whereas this one actually simulates a manual search process. So that's just one of the things that we do, which is perhaps slightly different, even if you're not buying our search engine services, is we look at your search website's performance before and after we do the website. So that's the first one. Site use questions, which is the next one on your sheet. This is one that you can take away and perhaps use when you're looking at your own website. Again, it's worthwhile thinking about your key competitors, worth making ideas of them if they've got some good ones, looking at their good practice, and seeing where they're going wrong as well. Have a think about who your audience are, and one of the key questions there is age and tech savvy. The reason for that is if I'm looking at a 20 to 30 age group who are technology savvy, the design and the methods that I can use on my website are vastly different to if I'm targeting a 60 plus audience who maybe use a computer once or twice a week. So that is critical to think about the design on your website. It isn't wrong to have a very clever interface, providing your audience will get that clever interface. So it's all about designing for the audience that you're working for. What main outcomes are you looking for from your site? It's amazing. Never ceases to amaze me how many companies, when I'm designing a website, can't answer that question. Don't have a clue, haven't thought about it. And I'm not talking about small companies here. In fact, generally speaking, small companies are better at this. Big companies, and especially public sector organisations, do not have a clue when it comes to this one. And one of the things we've done for some of our bigger clients, before we ever get to the design process, is spending some time with them looking at that. A day with their senior management team, but really fun as well. Senior management team, and then get the person from customer service who answers the phone into the same room. And the managers will go, oh, we didn't know that, oh, we didn't know that. Do you ever talk to each other? It's amazing how web design sometimes cuts into management consultancy about actually getting people in the business to talk to each other. Going out and talking to their customers if the budget is there, to go and talk to their customers, to go and talk to all the end users of a site and really understand what they're looking for. So that's important. So you can have your outcomes as well, but if you are doing this in a bigger project, also look at what your customers are looking for from your website, what your employees are looking for from your website, and all of that can form part of that answer. Interesting as well if what you're looking for completely doesn't overlap with what your customers are looking for. Either you need to rethink what you're doing, or you're going to lose a lot of customers. The final question on there is set tasks. One of the things we do is look at usability. Move back. Okay, fine. Oh, right, on the video. Oh, that's all right. Best bit. Is usability testing of your websites. So, if you're about to launch a website, at the last minute is not a good time to work out whether it's usable or not. You should be looking at usability all through the design process. But the best way of doing usability testing is not for me, the designer, or for you, the person who's been involved at every step of the project, to do that testing. The best method is to get a bunch of people who've never touched a website before into a room and watch them doing some set tasks. Believe me, it's scary, because you say, what? That button there, click on it, and they don't see it. Or do that, and they don't see it. So setting some key tasks that you're wanting to be the things that they do on your website and watch them fail, and then work out how to fix it, is a vitally important task in your website. I can make as pretty a website as I like. I can make it look fantastic. I can put some great content on there. It can all work technically perfectly. But if the user can't work out how to do what I want them to do, then the whole thing has been a complete and utter waste of time. Whereas I can have a really unattractive site that looks terrible, providing the customer stays on it and does what I want them to do, the website's a success, even if I as a designer might cringe in my boots. But that's actually that's an important note. I am a designer, I'm not an artist. I'm not about creating something beautiful, I'm about creating something that works for you as a business. And unfortunately, there's an awful lot of designers that are frustrated artists and forget that sort of vital bit of the process. On-site and off-site analysis for SEO. Now this is something, again, that you can go away and do for your website. I'm running out of time very quickly, but a whole list there of bits and pieces. Yes, it's got techie speak in there. This is our list. And at the end of the day, I'm going to leave some techie stuff in there, because at the end of the day, I want you to come and speak to us, and we're happy with all of this. But if you do know a bit of techie stuff, or if you're a designer and your coding people aren't asking these questions, then it should ring alarm bells for you. Important on there is site speed and server performance. There are tools you can use for measuring that from Google. Vital to check that as well, because Google measure the performance and speed with which your site responds, and that forms part of their ranking analysis for you, where your site will appear on search engines. And then there's also important to look at off-site search engine optimization, the keywords that people are using to link to your site, how many people are linking, and that sort of thing. Finally, site launch checklist, but actually this can be applied at any point during your site's life cycle. But we have a launch checklist. This forms part of it. I just took some of the main ones. I tried to leave out the more techie ones. But this forms a basic list that we look at before launching a website. We do all the stuff about the on-site SEO analysis, and we all do all of this other pre-launch, launch, and then the post-launch, 1 week later, 1 month later, 3 months later, 12 months later stuff, to make sure your site's a success. So, chance for you to have a look through that as well over lunch. It could be a long session, over breakfast, and see whether those things are correct on your website. If you do have any queries on any of those, do feel free to drop me a line as to say, what do you mean by X? And I can probably send you a link which explains it in more detail. But I just thought that helps perhaps indicate why, yes, we're not the cheapest web design agency there, I'd be the first to admit it, but what we do is approach things in a thorough and proper way, to not just make a pretty looking website, to not just take a template, shove some content in it and make it go live, but actually looking at processes which make sure that your site will be a success 1 month later, 3 months later, a year later, and on into the future. So, that's a whistle-stop tour of how we approach web design. If you do have any questions, you've got a chance for if you want to know more as well, and you think, actually, I'd really like to have a look at this in a bit more detail, then, you know, one-to-one sessions, you get half an hour with me to quiz me and so on, and it's not going to cost you anything. And then I'm going to quiz you for half an hour on what you do. So if you do want to know a bit more about this, then have a one-to-one with me and talk in a bit more detail and see if we can help you. There's a lot of stuff in there I admit to unpack in a short time. Thank you very much for listening.